Next at 5, saving our streets in Central Florida. 1 year after the death of a 9-year-old girl and 2 others in a shooting spree, the girl's family doing everything they can to serve the community.
Plus, a major issue with several phone networks nationwide.
Some people not being able to connect to 911.
A local emergency manager looks back at the lessons learned today.
And Florida lawmakers are one step closer to cracking the whip on social media companies. The controversial proposal involving teens online.
Local, live, late-breaking. West 2 News starts now.
Today marks exactly 1 year since the Pine Hill shooting spree that tore the Central Florida community apart. A total of 5 people were shot in the neighborhood that day.
3 of them died. You see their faces right here. 38-year-old Natasha Augustin, 9-year-old Tiana Major, and 24-year-old Dylan Lyons. Investigators say the shooter first killed Augustin, left the scene of the crime, and then returned, killing the young girl and the local TV news reporter. Investigators arrested Keith Moses, who remains in jail today. Moses has pleaded not guilty to murder and other charges. And after much back and forth in the court about his competency to stand trial, a judge ruled Moses is competent. The next hearing in this case is scheduled for March.
Now, this and other acts of violence in our community prompted West 2's Saving Our Streets initiative, with stories focused on efforts to make Central Florida a safe place for all. And Tiana Major's family has made a point to push through their grief and give back in a way that their daughter would have if she could have.
They are an inspiration. I spoke with Tiana's mom about building a legacy for her little girl.
9 years with her, and now 1 year without her. For Tiana Major's family, life will never be the same.
She was my everything, my joy, my pride, everything I did, it was for her.
Tiana's mother, Brandy, spoke with us 3 months ago as part of our Mother's Village.
Lord Jesus, we just ask that you help each and every one of them.
A group of moms who've all lost a child to violence or drugs. All of them turning their grief into action through community service.
She wanted everybody to eat good. She wanted everybody to have what she had.
It's just what Brandy and her family have done.
You want something to drink with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Take a look back at the last year through their social media platforms, and you can see Yaya's Dream Foundation in action. Yaya was their nickname for Tiana. The logo, a tribute to her strength as a star gymnast and a child who always wanted to help her community.
Because my daughter felt like everybody should have what she had. She don't, like, you told her that person was home, she don't understand that.
From neighborhood cleanups to food giveaways, the work, the impact, it's Tiana's legacy. And even in their grief, her family keeps it alive.
Everything she loved, I want to just go forward with it and just grow. I mean, the sky's the limit with me, with what I want to do. That's what keeps me going. Just living her dream and everything that she wanted to do.
Yaya's Dream Foundation will be back at work next month, hosting a neighborhood cleanup at the Christian Service Center. It's happening Saturday, March 16th, starting at 11 a.m. You can get more details on WESH.com. Just click on the Saving Our Streets tab. And tonight, join us for Saving Our Streets, a WESH 2 Project Community Special. As part of our in-depth reporting project on combating violence, we're highlighting more community members working to build up our young people. That special airs tonight at 7:30.
Governor Ron DeSantis says all of Central Florida is better off with the state takeover of the Disney properties government. Today in Lake Buena Vista, DeSantis rattled off the accomplishments of the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, like eliminating the perks enjoyed by the former Reedy Creek Improvement District and management, adding 500 local businesses to a new open bid contract system for vendors, and implementing state inspections of the monorail to ensure public safety. Democrats argue, though, that the governor has no business criticizing the way the former Disney government operated with hand-picked board members, since Republicans rejected a plan that would have demanded local elected officials serve on that board.
It's a result that, you now have a local government here with this district that is functioning in ways that are much more transparent, much more accountable, and ultimately much more beneficial to the people who live and work in Central Florida.
It is so hypocritical for Governor DeSantis to complain about Disney having that type of authority where he enjoys that authority, not just on this, but on many different boards across the state of Florida.
The governor won a victory 3 weeks ago when a federal court dismissed Disney's lawsuit claiming infringement of privacy rights. The company has appealed.
Starting early this morning and lingering until midday, several wireless carriers had issues nationwide. Naturally, Central Florida was included.
Depending on where you lived and what carrier you used, phone calls, texts, even 911 calls were impacted. West 2's Dave McDaniel spoke with an emergency manager about what message this outage should send.
Outage, multiple carriers, AT&T, the primary carrier here in Florida, but Cricket, T-Mobile, quite a few others.
As much as we rely on cell phones, a partial failure made most of us take notice.
Some people not being able to connect at all, some people not being able to connect to 911.
Adding a new item to anybody's emergency plan. Where's the closest old-fashioned plug-into-the-wall landline?
We have heard from quite a few folks that they've had to run next door, they've had to run into an apartment office to make those 911 calls from landline, the normal phones that you plug into the wall.
Even more than that?
You can get a phone line connected to your wall to call 911 only for no cost. So people should just go ahead and do that.
He suggests to make sure 911 is accessible to you, call the landline provider in your neighborhood, set up 911 only service, and find one old-timer phone. In the 911 center, they obviously have multiple redundancies, but they also have internet telephones. If the internet will go down, practicing what they preach, they also have a couple of landlines, just in case. Several agencies suggested calling their non-emergency number, but if you could not call it up on your phone and you needed emergency help, now what? Harris says save important numbers where you don't need phone or internet service to see them.
Your doctor, your family, because we're so used to just scrolling down to a name and pushing the green button, right? It's important to have those telephone numbers just in case.
In Seminole County, Dave McDaniel, West 2 News.
It's a very good point. Harris says he has an old school phone set up at his home, so he's assured he can reach 911. All right, here is a possible workaround for AT&T users in the future. The network says try making calls using Wi-Fi instead of cell service. And in order to do that, AT&T users must make sure the Wi-Fi calling function is turned on in their settings. They must also check their phone is connected to Wi-Fi. AT&T says if you see a Wi-Fi calling icon on your phone's notification bar, your calls will be carried out on Wi-Fi. Florida lawmakers have moved a step closer to regulating how young people consume social media.
Yep, the Senate today approved a measure that now goes back to the House with just weeks to go before the legislative session ends. West 2 News political reporter Greg Fox here with us. Greg, me and my mom friends are talking about this nonstop, and this is one of the key measures generating a lot of buzz in the Capitol, too.
Yeah, it's generating a lot of buzz because it puts parents' rights back in the middle of this debate. Another reason, there are Republicans who are for it and against it, and there are Democrats who are for it and against it.
Republican lawmakers want to restrict children under 16 from access to social media platforms, a measure that already passed the House. HB 1 was tweaked before hitting the Senate floor Thursday and drawing loud debate. The sponsor believes social media harms children. Opponents call the bill an overreach.
We're talking about businesses that are using addictive features to engage in mass manipulation of our children to cause them harm.
Social media has become a harm to not just children, but also to adults also. But it is not the legislature's job to parent the parents how to parent.
The bill passed 23-14 with a mix of Republicans and Democrats voting for and against it. Soon after, Meta, parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and other social media apps, told West 2 News it's crucial that HB 1 provide clear, consistent rules so all services meet the expectations of parents. Teens move fluidly across online services, and youth online safety bills that hold different services to different standards in different states will subject teens to inconsistent protections online. Governor Ron DeSantis made it clear the measure needs some work to account for flexibility among high schoolers.
Because I do think parents are concerned about social media and what goes on there, and I do think they think it's a problem. But I also think that for people that are, in high school, it's not as simple. I think you got to have some parent involvement.
Local Democrat Anna Escamani wants the bill to be adjusted downward to age 13.
If that's the compromise when it comes to the final version of this bill, allowing parents to have an opt-in, ideally for 13 and up, because I would say that it's teenage years that should be prioritized for parental consent, I think that's going to alleviate a lot of the concerns that myself and others have shared.
House and Senate leadership will try to conform the language in the bills that have passed in both chambers, getting it ready for a House vote on the floor sometime next week. Michelle?
Okay, Greg, thank you. More IVF programs are backing out of Alabama after a recent state Supreme Court ruling that would treat frozen embryos like children in the eyes of the law. CNN reports at least 3 fertility clinics plan to stop treatments. Other clinics are looking for more clarification on what this means for patients and providers. Some of the questions include whether they can freeze future embryos created during fertility treatment and if patients can donate or destroy embryos they don't use.
The losers are ultimately our patients, because if they stay in Alabama, they may subject themselves to issues with pregnancy.
Alabama Supreme Court ruling says those who destroy embryos can be held liable for wrongful death. Teachers in Orange County could get a pay increase of 9%, and if approved, it would be the highest pay increase in the county's history. The district and the teachers union have been negotiating a new contract for months now. The superintendent announced today that the district still plans to raise health insurance premiums for teachers, and in some cases close to $650 per year. The district is also willing to offer teachers a 9% pay increase, an average of $5,400 a year.
And moving forward with a historic 9% salary increase for our teachers. In fact, 90% of our teachers are rated highly effective and will actually receive a 9.7% salary increase if ratified.
Now it is up to the teachers union on whether to take the offer. We have reached out to the teachers union and we're waiting for their response.
The lunar lander mission is poised to make a historic landing tonight on the moon, a week after it launched from the Cape. The Intuitive Machines mission launched 1 week ago from right here at Launch Pad 39A, and just before 6:30, it's expected to touch down. But just before it touches down, something called Eagle Cam will be deployed. This is cool. The device, made by Embry-Riddle students, provides a third-person view of the landing.
So we'll have a lot of data from the plume of the lander. We want to see how the lander actually landed. And if everything goes, smoothly, the ideal goal is that we take this amazing video of a lander landing.
That is so exciting. Imagine these students.
I know, it's in space.
Yeah, the landing time was delayed by an hour or so the lander could orbit the moon one more time.
Very cool. All right, we have a crucial reminder to make sure that your children are up to date with their vaccines.
That's the key here before people panic. There is a vaccine. The vaccine is very effective.
Doctors have a warning for parents after a cluster of measles cases at a South Florida elementary school.
And a high-speed chase ends in a fiery crash. How Highway Patrol was able to stop a driver in a stolen semi.
Plus, no more driving around the city for different doctors in Orlando. The Vision One Hospital is bringing to life for kids.
And it was tough to come into work today. I am telling you, it was absolutely stupendous. Look at these afternoon highs, 70 to 75, even warmer tomorrow. But rain and weekend changes are on the way. That story, all straight ahead.
Local, live, late-breaking. West 2 News starts now.
Tonight on West 2, Central Florida celebrating a victory. The Lake Mary All-Stars now world champions. That's after they won the Little League World Series. West 2 Sports was live on the air as the final run was scored, breaking a 1-1 tie with Chinese Taipei.
We're going to put the camera down, run downstairs, and
Something just happened. I think Lake Mary just won the world championship. You can't. All right, we're going to go get some reaction. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Lake Mary's world champs. Back to you.
It was a nail-biter of a game that ran into the 8th inning, keeping fans on their toes.
I am so excited for this team. They are going to be flying high.
Flying high and coming home to a community that is proud of everything this team has accomplished. And back at home base here in Central Florida tonight, the preparations are already underway for a parade to honor our Little League World Series champions. Thank you for joining us. I'm Summer Knowles. And we've got team coverage tonight on the Lake Mary All-Stars big win. West 2's Tonight, Gabriel and Tony Atkins spoke with fans, and West 2's sports Kristen Lago is in the studio tonight to provide more insight into the game. But first, we begin with West 2 sports director Darren Solsvitz live in Williamsport, Pennsylvania for us tonight, where the game was played earlier today. Darren, you were live on air during our 6 p.m. newscast, updating us on the game when Lake Mary won it all. How exciting.
Yes, Summer, it was incredible. We were up at the top of this hill, very steep hill, just outside Lamity Stadium.
Local, live, late-breaking. West 2 News starts now.
One day after a deadly bus crash in Ocala, 7 people are still in the hospital in critical condition. 53 farm workers were on the bus that turned over when a pickup truck driver slammed into it. 8 of them died. The pickup truck driver has been arrested.
Tonight, West 2 has team coverage all over Central Florida. We've reached out to family members of the victims and dug more into the suspects' past driving violations. But first, we begin with West 2's Spencer Tracy live in Marion County.
Yeah, Spencer, the truck driver made his first court appearance today.
That's right, and we got new information and insights what led up to and before the crash. And an interesting note was that before the crash, actually the night before, he took 4 different types of drugs.
All right, good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Brian Howard.
We are seeing the bandaged head of 41-year-old Brian Howard. This morning, he made his first appearance in front of a judge. Howard is facing 8 counts of DUI manslaughter. Florida Highway Patrol says his Florida pickup sideswiped this bus along State Road 40 in Marion County. The bus was carrying dozens of farm workers. 8 of them were killed in the crash. 8 others critically hurt, and almost 40 more went to the hospital. This morning's hearing was short, focusing on whether Howard could afford a lawyer. He told the judge he runs his own business.
It's called VHM Maintenance. I paint and drywall.
West 2 obtained this arrest report showing that troopers say Howard admitted he'd been smoking marijuana oil with a friend the night before, and he took his prescribed medications before he went to bed around 12 a.m. He told them he got up around 5 a.m. to drive to a methadone clinic, but doesn't know how the crash happened. The report says, in quote, he stated he was driving very carefully because he was involved in a separate crash 3 days prior. He could not remember what parts of his truck got hit in the crash.
Right now, this court is going to hold you on a no bond on all 8 counts, sir.
Howard was given a public defender. Prosecutors asked for him to be held with no bond because he has a long history of driving violations. Plus, they say he could face even more charges for the bus crash. And prosecutors say Howard has been convicted in 20 previous cases. That includes leaving the scene of a crash, as well as careless driving and driving without a license. So his next court appearance will be on June 18th. Of course, we will keep you updated if we get more information. Reporting from the Marion County Jail, Spencer Tracy, West 2 News.
Our team coverage continues now with West 2's Pamela Combs. She traveled all the way to Gainesville.
Pamela, some farm workers who knew the victims are staying at the Days Inn where you are now.
Yeah, they are. In fact, we spoke with a man who lost his brother in the crash. Of course, he is heartbroken. As for the other workers, many of them are struggling physically. They have cuts, scrapes, bruises. We saw one man with an arm sling around his arm. But not only are they hurting and struggling physically, but also mentally, as many of them didn't really want to talk today. Proudly, but with tears in his eyes, Jose Juan Ventura Hernandez held this photo of his brother, Everardo.
Your dad was a champion in every sense of the word.
That's what Jose will tell the 1-year-old daughter his brother is leaving behind. He said he and his brother had been coming to work to the States for nearly a decade as agricultural workers.
We're field workers, and we came in search of life, in search of a better future, but we were met with death.
Leonardo Garcia also came from Mexico to work. He was not on the bus and was shocked to hear the news.
It could have been me. It could have been one of my coworkers. I don't wish this on anyone. This was horrible.
A tragedy that forever changed this crew. We were told by other workers some can barely move because they're covered in bruises, and those still alive are hurting, emotionally unwell. And now all Jose wants is to get his brother back to Mexico.
Now I'm just waiting for his body, for them to hand him over, so I can send him as quickly as possible back home. My family wants to see him. My mom, there's nothing we can say to comfort her. 2 of us came, and only 1 of us is going back.
9 years of working in this industry, leaving a family behind to work, only to find out that the job that kept this family going was the same one that would break it apart. And many workers are still staying at the Days Inn Hotel. They are unsure if and when they'll go back to work, but for now, they'll be here. Reporting in Gainesville, Pamela Combe, WESH 2 News.
Tonight, we're also hearing from the Mexican consulate after yesterday's crash.
WESH 2's Luana Munoz continues our team coverage tonight live in Orlando. Luana.
Yeah, the Mexican consulate says that the Department of Labor is now investigating the company that the farmer contracts with. That company is Olvera Trucking Harvesting Corporation. They are the ones responsible for transporting these migrant workers from where they live to their workplace. Now, the hotel where they were staying was roughly 1 hour from the farm site where they were supposed to be working. There could be an issue with the distance in which they were living legally. That is who is being investigated, the Olvera Trucking Harvesting Corporation. The consulate also spoke to the kind of people that were involved in this accident. They are all Mexicans with H-2A visas, which means that they are primarily here alone. They are here by themselves. They can't bring their wives or their children. So the consulate did spend the day contacting those family members in Mexico, who of course are devastated.
We receive a lot of news about, oh, the immigrants are criminals, the immigrants are bad people. And in the reality, for application for a visa H-2A, you need have no criminal records in this country and my country. Never cross the border as illegal way.
Now, there were roughly 43 to 45 people in total on that bus. The consulate has been having a hard time with Olvera Trucking Harvesting Corporation trying to get a total head count as they didn't have everyone's information. Now, the consulate has been trying to go one by one and contacting all of those migrant farm workers to let them know what resources are available to them, as well as their families who are in Mexico. That's the latest information from the consulate here in Orlando. I'm Luana Munoz reporting live for WESH 2 News.
And tonight, we're learning more about the suspect arrested in the deadly crash. Brian Howard has been in trouble with the law for more than 2 decades, convicted at least 20 times since 2003.
Most crimes were related to crashes and other traffic offenses. Our team coverage continues now with WESH 2's Sanait Gebrigedigas live outside of the Marion County Jail. Tonight, you learned Howard lives with his parents in Dunellen.
Yeah, and I spoke with some of his neighbors. Some of them were not familiar with him, and others just didn't want to talk about what happened. According to public records, Howard lives just a couple of miles from the job site that the farm workers were heading to. For the second day, Cannon Farm stayed closed after 8 of its migrant workers were killed and dozens hurt in Tuesday's bus crash. A sign hanging next to a wreath Wednesday said it was closed out of respect to the losses of life and those injured in the tragic accident, and read, "Please pray with us for the families. We will resume regular business hours tomorrow." Brian Howard is facing DUI manslaughter charges. He's accused of causing the bus to run off the roadway before slamming into a tree and flipping. It was carrying more than 50 farm workers. About 7 miles down the road in Dunellen is where Howard reportedly lives. And how do you feel knowing that this was your neighbor?
Oh, it's terrible. Just to think about, what had happened. 8 people had died. A lot of lives are ruined right now.
This neighbor has not seen Howard around before, but he hopes his arrest will keep the community safe.
I was happy to hear that he was held without bond, because you never really see anything happen over here. So we knew something happened. And we had a friend that lived in the house right next door to him on here. So, yeah, it's terrible.
Cannon Farms posted a fundraiser on its Facebook that is organized by the Farm Worker Association of Florida. It's where people can donate to support the victims and their families. And once again, Cannon Farms will reopen back to business tomorrow morning. We're live in Marion County. Sanaiga Rodriguez, WESH 2 News.
All right, Sanai, thank you. And we have more team coverage ahead at 5:30. WESH 2 Investigates looked into the trucking company used to transport the migrant workers. You can read more about the crash and everything that followed online on WESH.com.
Local, live, late-breaking. WESH 2 News starts now.
First at 5, storms that brought severe weather to Central Florida this afternoon, finally moving offshore. Here's a live look at our active radar right now.
This system, which triggered tornado and severe thunderstorm warnings earlier today, caused some damage. A1A in Flagler County is washed out tonight, so drivers are limited to just one lane on the road near the Volusia County line. WESH 2 also spotted some power lines down in Winter Garden on Vineland Road. Police say a tree fell on a fence, which caused some wires to come down there.
A possible tornado hit St. Johns County, damaging some homes. Check out the roofs of these homes just west of St. Augustine. The National Weather Service still needs to confirm whether an actual tornado touched down, but we have seen some video from that area that appears to be so. We have team coverage from our first warning meteorologist on this first warning weather day.
All right, let's start with Marquise Meada and Tony Manalfi. Guys, it appears the worst is over now.
Yeah, we had a very active afternoon, but it's nice to see these storms just pushing off towards the east along the I-95 corridor.
And speaking of that corridor, our weather lab has been out there in central and southern Brevard County, and they're doing a really good job of showing us how the weather moved in and is now beginning to move east of I-95. So for the back end of the evening commute tonight, I think we are going to be in much better shape. Up towards the Melbourne International Airport, just to the north there, you can see we do have showers and storms here. These are continuing now to build eastward and move offshore. I think within about the next half hour here, all of the activity here will be east of Brevard County. There's Palm Bay, Floridana Beach, still some moderate to heavy showers here, but nothing like the first round that came through just a short time ago. Great news now for the heart of the evening commute in the metro areas along the 417, the 429, the Beach Line, the Turnpike, and the I-4 corridor. The worst of the wind and the rain is now over with, and more of the same from Ocala, Anthony, Citra, back up towards Palm Coast and Flagler Beach. But the rainfall amounts today, Ocklawaha, over 3 inches of rain, Marion Oaks and the Villages, 1.5 to 2 inches of rain. Now, still have a lot of wind out there, still gusting to 47 miles an hour here at the top of the hour. Boy, I'll tell you what, we had a lot of wind today. With more on that, here's Marquise.
Thank you, Tony. It's been a breezy day from start to finish. I tell you, I walked outside my house today, my screen door, it was flapping in the wind. We had some gusty conditions here inside the metro. Outside the metro, though, look at Sanford Airport, 45-mile-per-hour wind speeds. Palm Coast, 45 as well. So the wind was a major story today on top of the warnings that we did have. Currently, though, we have cooled with the rain passing by us just about an hour or two ago. Temperatures in Melbourne, those were back in the 80s. Now you've fallen down to 73 degrees. Elsewhere, we see a boatload of 70s across the board. The only exception, that's Palm Bay, still sitting right around 86 degrees, but I promise you will be cooling when the rain does move offshore. 77 here in the metro, and we're likely to cool back down into the lower 60s tonight, but it's already been a significant change from what we've seen just 24 hours ago. Take a peek here. Temperatures across the I-4 corridor anywhere between 5 and 10 degrees cooler than we were in this point in time yesterday, and we still have some additional cooling to get done. Ultimately, we'll fall back down to the upper 50s and lower 60s as the storms do clear, and the wind speeds will be much more calm overnight. And we'll see those cooler wake-up temperatures coming your way tomorrow, as well as the weekend still ahead. And we'll take a closer look at that with your 7-day certified forecast coming up next time I see you.
Marquise, thank you. The same storm system has caused flooding further up the East Coast. Here we have video from Savannah on the left, Charleston on the right. Drivers in both cities have been warned about the standing water. Remember, our WESH 2 News weather team is working around the clock to keep you up to date on any changes to our forecast. For the latest details, be sure to download the WESH 2 app, turn on alerts for any breaking updates.
Still ahead, private conversations unsealed in court documents.
What the parents of Brian Laundrie say they knew about the death of his girlfriend, Gabby Petito.
Also, a concerning report from the New York Times claiming a deadly plane crash is likely inevitable. The issues that could spin air traffic controllers out of control. Plus,
According to a new survey, Orlando is the second most fun city in the U.S. Do you agree? The answer coming up.
In addition to that, it's also about to get a little cooler, tracking temperatures moving down the peninsula as they drop. We'll talk about what to expect out the door in the morning and the next 7 days ahead in weather.
More news is coming up at 5:30, including a dangerous stretch of road where many pedestrians have died.
Officials say enough is enough, and they're making improvements. The changes to OBT that could apply to other parts of the state.
And a new feature could help people avoid catfishing on Tinder, what the dating app wants people to do to prove their identity.
And do you know someone with a history of doing good in Central Florida? WESH 2 wants to know about them. Nominate those with a track record of giving back for a WESH 2 Community Champion Spotlight. Email us your details about your community champion at communitychampion@wesh.com, and they could be featured right here on WESH 2 on Thursdays.